Welcome to Nick's Scary Stories, where today we uncover 5 terrifying tales from haunted homes across Bakersfield, California. From haunted duplexes and abandoned orchards to shadowy figures appearing in family living rooms, these true stories come from local residents who still carry the fear of what they saw. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, tap the bell icon, and leave a comment letting us know which story scared you most. Now turn off the lights, put in your headphones, and let's get started. Story 1. The Reflection in the Orchard. Location: West Bakersfield, near Panama Lane. It was June of 2019 when we moved into the little stucco house on the west side of Bakersfield. My husband had gotten a new job near Panama Lane, and we thought this place would be a fresh start. The rent was surprisingly cheap considering the size. 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a long driveway, and a huge backyard that opened up into an overgrown orchard. At first, it felt like a dream. But from the very first night, I couldn't sleep. There's a type of quiet that doesn't feel right. It's not peace, it's pressure. That's what I felt lying in bed with the fan on and my husband snoring next to me. I kept staring at the window. We didn't have blinds up yet, just a thin sheet tacked across the glass, and every breeze that passed through made it flutter like someone brushing a hand against it from outside. At first, I told myself it was just adjustment nerves. New house, new job, new everything. But by the end of that first week, I was afraid to be alone in the house during the day, and terrified to be alone at night. You know that sensation you get when you walk past a mirror in the dark and feel like something in it moved that shouldn't have? That's what I felt every time I walked past the hallway mirror. Like something in it paused what it was doing to watch me go by. But the real horror started with my daughter, Maya. She was 6 at the time. Sweet, playful, never scared of anything. On our 5th night there, around 2 a.m., I heard her voice in the hallway. I assumed she needed water. I got up and found her standing in front of the back door, the one that faced the orchard. She was staring out the window into the dark. "What are you doing?" I asked, keeping my voice low. She didn't turn around. "He's watching us," she whispered. My skin turned to ice. I moved to her and gently pulled her away from the door. "Who's watching us, Maya?" She looked up at me with a tired expression. "The man in the trees. He smiles when the lights are off." We kept the porch light on every night after that. The next day, I went out into the orchard myself. It was mostly dead trees, sunburned and brittle, with a narrow dirt path leading through the center. I didn't see anyone out there, but I felt it. That feeling again, that I was being observed. You don't forget that sensation. It's like your spine locks up and your heartbeat becomes the only sound in your ears. 2 nights later, it got worse. We had just put Maya to bed and were sitting in the living room when we heard the creak of the back door opening. But we had locked it. I rushed into the kitchen and saw that the door was still closed, but the curtain had been pulled aside from the inside, like someone had been peeking out, or looking in. My husband tried to laugh it off, said maybe the wind pushed the fabric, but the fan was off, the AC wasn't running, and the air in the kitchen felt colder than it should have, like we weren't alone. The real breaking point came that weekend. I was in the bathroom getting ready for bed, brushing my teeth, when Maya started screaming from her room. Not crying, screaming. I dropped everything and ran. She was standing on her bed, pointing at the window. I looked and froze. Outside the window was a tall figure. Pale skin, long black hair, face pressed to the glass, but it wasn't quite a man. Its smile stretched too wide. Its eyes weren't looking in. They were looking at the mirror behind me. I turned. Nothing was there. When I looked back at the window, the figure was gone. We didn't sleep that night. I kept every light in the house on and held Maya in my arms until sunrise. When I asked her what she saw, she just whispered, "It likes the mirror. It's where he hides." Last time, a mother discovered a figure watching her family from the orchard, and a reflection in the mirror that shouldn't exist. But the haunting isn't done yet. Not even close. Listen closely because the next part might explain what was really hiding behind the glass. After that night, I begged my husband to let us move out. He said we were being paranoid, that we just needed better security and maybe some rest. But I knew what I saw. That face. That grin. The way Maya froze in terror. You don't fake that kind of fear. We got a dog the next day. A rescue mutt named Baxter. He was big, loud, and never afraid of anything, until we brought him home. He wouldn't go near the mirror. The first time he saw it, he stood frozen, hackles up, tail tucked between his legs, growling like there was something on the other side. Then he whimpered and ran into the kitchen. That night, I caught him barking at the back window, teeth bared, paws scratching the tile. But there was no one outside. Not even the trees moved. The next morning, I found muddy footprints in the hallway. Only, they weren't from shoes. They were bare feet. Long, narrow, and wet, like someone had walked in from the orchard barefoot. The trail led from the back door, straight to the mirror. Then it stopped. No prints back. Just there, like someone had stepped into the house and never left. I tried everything. Salt along the windows. Candles. A local pastor came and said a prayer over the house. For a few days things went quiet, until Maya stopped talking. She wouldn't look at the mirror anymore. Wouldn't even go near the hallway. She started sleeping in our bed, trembling under the blanket. I asked her what was wrong. "He's closer now," she whispered. "He knows you saw him." I felt sick. That night I stayed up watching the hallway. I didn't blink. I didn't move. And just after 3 a.m. I saw it again. A shape. Not in the mirror this time, but in the reflection of the glass oven door. It walked past behind me, slow, deliberate. Pale skin. Wet footprints. I spun around. Nothing. But the footprints were wet again. I turned on every light in the house, got Maya, and we drove to a friend's house across town. I couldn't take it anymore. Something was in that house and it wasn't human. The next day we came back to pack. I opened the front door and stopped cold. Every mirror in the house, even the one in my purse compact, had been shattered. But none of the glass was on the floor. It had all been pushed inward, like something had come out. I called the landlord and told him we were leaving. He didn't even argue. Just sighed and said, "It always happens after the first rain." "What do you mean?" I asked. He told me the orchard behind the house used to be part of a sanitarium, a small one that burned down in the 60s. Only a few walls remained, covered by the trees. He said patients sometimes wandered out, got lost in the orchard, and vanished. One of them, he said, used to stand in front of the mirror all day, saying she could see people in it that weren't her. He never told us that before. When I pressed him, he just said, "The last family broke all the mirrors too. We left that day. Left everything behind." I don't know what was watching us. I don't want to know. But sometimes late at night I catch Maya staring at her bedroom mirror. And once, just once, I saw a handprint on the inside of the glass, small, long-fingered, and wet. She hasn't spoken about him since. Story 2. The House on Bell Terrace. Location: East Bakersfield, Bell Terrace near MT Vernon Avenue. Welcome back to Nick's Scary Stories. In this second terrifying tale, we take you to a quiet residential block on Bell Terrace where a teenage girl discovered her new home wasn't just old, it was occupied. And what lived there didn't want to be forgotten. This one still gives locals chills. In 2012, I was 15 when my dad got transferred to a job in Bakersfield. We moved from Long Beach and ended up in a small 2-bedroom house off Bell Terrace. It was built in the 1940s, one of those squat stucco homes with narrow windows and a weird smell baked into the walls. My mom said it had character. I thought it had secrets. From the moment we walked in, I felt like I was being watched. My bedroom was the smallest room at the end of the hall. The closet was deep and narrow with a thin pull-string light that barely worked. The first night, I heard whispering. I assumed it was the TV in my parents' room. But when I went to ask them to turn it down, their TV was off. The whispering stopped the second I opened their door. It came back the next night. Always the same voice. Soft. Mel. Like it was telling a secret just beyond the wall. I put my ear against the closet, and I heard it clear as day. "Help me." I slept on the living room couch that night. My dad was annoyed. He thought I was being dramatic. He even joked that the house had ghosts but said, "Don't worry, they pay rent." I laughed along, but I didn't go back in that room. Not until I had to. About a week later, I was getting ready for bed when the closet door creaked open, on its own. I froze. Then I smelled it. Rotten fruit and something worse, like a wet towel left in a sealed box. The light inside the closet flicked on, though I hadn't pulled the string. There was nothing inside. Just the flickering bulb swinging gently. But the voice came again, "Please, I'm still here." I slammed the door shut and shoved my desk in front of it. The next morning I told my mom. She looked worried, not for me but for what I said. "You heard that too?" she asked. She told me that the last few nights she'd been waking up at exactly 3:10 a.m., and each time the hallway light was on, even though she turned it off before bed. And sometimes, she'd hear footsteps pacing in the attic. That afternoon, we asked the landlord about the house's history. He paused, then sighed. Used to be owned by a family in the 60s. Their son disappeared. 15 years old. One night he just vanished from his room. No forced entry, no signs of a struggle. They searched for weeks, but no trace. That was his room actually. My room. That night I couldn't sleep. I left the closet light on, thinking maybe if I kept it open, whatever was inside would stay quiet. But at 3:10 a.m. the light turned off. And I heard it again. Not whispering this time. Crying. Then came the scratching. Faint at first, like a pencil dragged across paper. Then louder. Sharper. Coming from inside the closet wall. I got out of bed, trembling, grabbed my phone, and opened the voice recorder. I approached the closet slowly, quietly. The bulb inside flickered. I turned on the recording and said, "If you're there, what do you want?" The scratching stopped. Silence. Then a single knock. 3 seconds later, the bulb exploded. I screamed and ran back, hitting my knee on the bed frame. My parents rushed in, asking what happened. I played back the recording for them. It was mostly static, but in the middle there was a voice. Barely a whisper. "I'm in the wall." The next day, my dad cut into the back panel of the closet with a saw. Behind it was a narrow crawl space, maybe a foot wide, running along the insulation. At the very end, wedged between two beams, was a shoe. A boy's sneaker. Cracked and rotted. Inside it, a yellowed page torn from a yearbook. On the back, scribbled in red pen, "Still here." We moved out that weekend. They never found the boy. But someone, or something, never stopped looking for a way out. Sometimes when I can't sleep, I open that voice recording on my phone and listen. The whisper is still there. And now it says something different. Come back. Story 3, The Watcher in the Window. Location, Oleander Sunset Neighborhood, Bakersfield, 2006. Studio microphone. Welcome back to Nick's Scary Stories. Our third haunting tale brings us to a charming older neighborhood in the heart of Bakersfield, where one young woman moved into a cozy 2-story home and soon discovered she was never alone. If you've ever felt watched from the shadows of your own home, this story might hit too close to home. Back in 2006, I was fresh out of college and got offered a teaching job in Bakersfield. The pay wasn't great, but it came with a rental stipend, so I found a charming 2-bedroom house on Palm Street in the Oleander Sunset District. It had big bay windows, creaky floors, and that kind of vintage charm you can't fake. I moved in that July. Everything felt perfect, until I found the letter. It was taped to the inside of the kitchen cabinet door, yellowed and brittle. Type. No envelope. It said, "If the man in the window watches too long, don't look back. Close the curtains and count to 10. Then go to sleep. Do not look again." At first I laughed it off. Urban legend stuff, right? But there was something eerie about the way it was written. Flat, serious, no flair. Almost like a warning left by someone too scared to write more. I forgot about it for the first few days. My new job kept me busy, and I was falling in love with the neighborhood. Tree-lined streets, friendly neighbors, and those hot, dry Bakersfield nights where you can hear every creak and cricket through the windows. Then, one night around 11:30 p.m., I was reading in the living room when I noticed movement across the street. At first, I thought it was a neighbor walking their dog. But when I stood and looked through the curtain, no one was there. Just shadows. I turned off the light to check my reflection in the glass, and that's when I saw it. Not outside. Inside. Someone was standing halfway up my staircase. Perfectly still. Half in shadow. I froze. My heart slammed so loud I could barely breathe. I backed toward the kitchen to grab a knife, and when I looked back, gone. No sound. No door opened. Nothing moved. The next day, I chalked it up to sleepiness or stress. First year teaching nerves. But something didn't feel right. I started keeping the curtains closed. Kept lights on longer than needed. And every night, I'd look up those stairs before bed. That's when it began happening regularly. At night, around 3 a.m., the window in the guest room upstairs would be wide open. I know I closed it. I even started taking pictures on my phone before bed to prove it to myself. Then came the footsteps. Not heavy, not clumsy. Careful. Measured. Like someone pacing, in socks, slowly across the floor above me. I lived alone. I finally told my coworker Ms. Green, an older teacher who grew up in Bakersfield. She went pale. That house. I used to walk past it on my way to school. There was an old man who lived there alone. People said he stared out the upstairs window all day. Never blinked. When he died, no one claimed the body. That week I went digging. Old newspapers, online records, local forums. I found a report from 1983. A man named Edwin L. Waters was found dead in that house. He was a retired clerk. No family. Died of dehydration. He had locked himself in the house, covered every window with newspaper, and stacked boxes in front of every door. The last entry in his notebook read, "I know he's watching now. I saw myself watching me." I felt sick. That night, I dreamt of someone sitting on the staircase, the same figure I saw that first week, but this time I saw his face. It was me, but not quite. Thinner, hollow-eyed, wearing clothes I didn't recognize, and he was mouthing something, the same line over and over. "Don't look at the window." When I woke up, the curtains in the living room were open. The front door was ajar, and the lock still bolted. It was the final straw. I packed a bag and stayed in a motel for the next 3 days. When I returned to grab the rest of my things, I noticed something new taped to the fridge. The same letter. Only now, at the bottom, written in red marker, was one more line. "You looked." Story 4. The Light in the Field. Location: Rosedale Highway, Bakersfield, 1999. Studio microphone. Welcome back to Nick's Scary Stories. Our fourth tale takes us to a farmhouse on the far western edge of Bakersfield, out by Rosedale Highway, where one family thought they'd found peace in the country, until a strange light in the empty field behind their home started coming back night after night. And something started watching from the grass. It was 1999 when my cousin Daniel and his wife April bought their first house, a small fixer-upper sitting alone on 5 acres of dry golden farmland near the edge of Rosedale. The property had once been part of an old dairy farm, but everything around it was long abandoned. No barns, no fences, just miles of dry weeds, brown earth, and sky. They were thrilled. April was pregnant with their first child. Daniel was a contractor, so he figured he could handle any repairs. They moved in that June. The first few weeks were uneventful. Long drives into town, hot days, peaceful nights filled with cricket chirps and the occasional coyote howl. It was quiet. Too quiet. That changed one night in late July. Daniel woke up around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom. As he passed the kitchen window, something caught his eye. A light. Not from the road. Not from the house. A single white orb about 4 feet off the ground, glowing faintly in the middle of the overgrown field behind their house. He stood there, frozen, staring. No flicker. No beam. Just a steady, unnatural glow, like a lantern with no source. Before he could call for April, it blinked out. He didn't mention it in the morning. Maybe it was a passing car or reflection. But the next night it came back. Same place. Same glow. But this time it moved. It hovered slowly, drifting parallel to the back of the house. Daniel opened the sliding door and stepped onto the porch, watching. There was no sound. No wind. Just that light drifting through the waist-high weeds. And then it stopped. Dead still. And started rising. He blinked. Gone. This time he told April. They laughed it off. Maybe he was dreaming. He'd stroke. The Bakersfield sun was relentless that summer. But then came the third night. April was the one who saw it. She screamed. Daniel ran to the kitchen, and there it was again, the light, but closer now, maybe 20 feet from the back porch. And behind it, faint in the dark, something else. A shape, taller than a man. Thin. So, Daniel grabbed his flashlight and ran outside. April begged him not to, but he was halfway into the field already, pointing the beam toward the light. Nothing. The glow was gone. So was the figure. But the grass was flattened. A trail like something had moved through it in a straight line, leading right up to the back of their house. They called the sheriff. The deputy who came out said the land behind them was untouched. County records showed no activity since the 70s. He chalked it up to pranksters or wildlife and told them to keep their doors locked. Then the dream started. Daniel began waking in a cold sweat, convinced someone was standing at the foot of their bed. April said she dreamt of walking into the field over and over, until the light swallowed her. And every time they checked the yard in the morning, there were new trails. Fresh ones. Some leading up to the windows. One night, Daniel set up a camera on the back porch. Motion activated. Old tape system, but reliable. They went to bed. Around 3:12 a.m. the sensor triggered. In the footage, nothing for a few seconds. Then a white glow appeared in the center of the screen. It drifted forward, then stopped. And then something stepped in front of the lens. Not a man. Too tall. Too smooth. And where its face should have been, just a bright white blur as if the camera couldn't focus. The tape cut out. They packed their bags that morning and stayed with Daniel's brother in Oildale. When they returned 2 days later to collect more of their things, they found the front door wide open. No signs of forced entry. No items missing. But inside on the kitchen table was the camcorder. Tape ejected. And beside it, a single sheet of paper. Type. Just like the ones from Story 3. Read. You shouldn't have watched. Now it remembers you. They moved to Northern California that week. That house still stands today. Boarded up. Overgrown. No one's lived in it since 2000. And neighbors say that on certain summer nights when the wind dies down, you can still see a light glowing in the field. slowly drifting, waiting for someone else to watch too long. Story 5. The House That Changed Her Voice. Location: East Bakersfield, 2013. Studio microphone. Welcome back to Nick's Scary Stories. Our fifth and final tale takes us deep into East Bakersfield, where a single mother and her daughter rented a small home on a quiet cul-de-sac, hoping for a fresh start. But what they found inside wasn't peace, it was something waiting to speak through them. In early 2013, Carla Jenkins and her 9-year-old daughter, Mia, moved into a modest 2-bedroom home just off Bernard Street. It was a quiet neighborhood, retired neighbors, big trees, the kind of place that felt stuck in time, like it hadn't changed in decades. Carla had just gone through a rough divorce. She needed something affordable, private, peaceful, and the house was perfect, too perfect. The first night, Mia had trouble sleeping. She said the walls were too loud. Carla thought she meant the plumbing or maybe the wind, but Mia explained it differently. She said the walls weren't making noise, they were listening. Carla brushed it off. First night jitters. But the second night, things got stranger. Around 3 a.m., Carla woke up to find Mia standing beside her bed, not moving, just staring at the wall. Carla sat up, gently shook her. Mia blinked, looked confused, and asked what she was doing there. Neither of them could explain it. The next morning, Mia didn't remember a thing. But when Carla walked past her bedroom, she noticed something odd. The walls were wet. Not soaked, but damp. From the floor up to about 3 feet, like condensation. She touched it. Cold. Slick. She checked for leaks. Wipes. Nothing. She wiped it clean, figuring it was a one-time thing. That afternoon, Mia came home from school and asked Carla if she had a sore throat. Carla said no. Mia nodded and said, "Good. I'll keep it then." That night, Mia's voice changed. At dinner, she started humming to herself. The tune wasn't anything Carla recognized. It sounded old, like something you'd hear from a broken music box. But what made her stop mid-bite was the pitch. It was too low. Mia's soft child voice had dropped a full octave. Carla asked her to stop playing around. But Mia just smiled, not like a kid but like someone older. Someone pretending to be a kid. Then, without blinking, Mia said, "It's nice to speak again." Carla stood up so fast she knocked over her chair. Mia snapped out of it, her voice returned to normal. Confused, nervous. She didn't remember what she'd said. She started crying and Carla held her close, promising everything would be okay. The next day, Carla called the landlord. Asked if anything strange had ever happened in the house. There was a long pause. Then the landlord said, "That house sat empty for 5 years. Before you moved in, a girl lived there. With her grandmother. The girl stopped speaking. For months. They said she was hearing voices in the walls." Carla hung up. She started sleeping with Mia in her room, keeping the lights on, the windows locked. But it didn't help. The walls started talking back. Late at night, they'd hear whispering. Faint at first, then louder. Always the same words. "She's still here. She never left. Let her speak." Carla tried recording it, but the audio was always corrupted. Static. Clicking. Sometimes a hum. The same tune Mia had sung. Then came the night Carla woke up and heard Mia talking, not to herself but to something in the wall. She pressed her ear to it, and the wall whispered back. A full conversation. Like two friends catching up after years apart. She yanked Mia out of bed and drove straight to her sister's place across town. They never spent another night in that house. A few weeks later, Carla went back during the day to collect their things. She brought her brother-in-law with her. Inside, the house was quiet. Until they reached Mia's room. There, written in chalk across every inch of the wall, were the words, "Let her speak. She's been silent too long." In the center of the room, placed on Mia's old pillow, was a photo neither of them recognized. A little girl, wearing a dark dress, mouth wide open, but not in a scream. In a laugh. Mia's laugh. Megaphone, thank you for sticking with us through all 5 terrifying tales from Bakersfield, California. These stories gave you chills. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You never know which town we'll cover next, and which haunted place you'll recognize from your own past.